just finished watching a couple Tyler Henry video interview bits, including someone who attempted to debunk him. And it occurred to me I could contribute to this discourse. I have 3 episodes of my own as testimony, and one from my grandmother. My grandmother was born in 1890, raised in eastern Pennsylvania. As a child, she said, they used to play the key game. The key game, played with a key with the loops on the end and the shaft and the little rectangular bits on the other end, those old wrought iron keys. One person would be sent out of the room, and then everyone in the room would decide where to hide the key. They would place the key somewhere in the room, hidden. Not like Hucklebuckle Beanstalk. We played that game when we were kids. Not in plain sight, hidden. And then the person who was waiting in the other room would be blindfolded and brought back in. Spun around a couple times. And while that person was being spun around, everyone else in the room, seated in a circle, was supposed to focus on the key. Think about the key. Picture the key, picture where it was placed, its location, and the blindfolded person was also supposed to concentrate on the key. And then time would unfold, and the blindfolded person was to locate the key. My grandmother said she would always win that game. She was always the quickest. She could find the key faster than anybody else. I believe such skills are inherited. I think they are passed down through the mind. And scientists aren't sure where the mind is now. Used to be, everyone thought the mind was in the brain. But now there's a lot of speculation. Is the mind in the brain, or is the mind throughout the entire body at the cellular level? Where is the mind? Well, I don't know where the mind is. I'm not a scientist. I only know that I believe that such abilities to intuit with the mind are inherited. I have 3 episodes of my own to share. The first one happened I think it was 93. I had purchased this house in 89. This house was built in 1895, and I was not raised in this house. I was in bed on my back. And I know that it was not daylight. The lights were off. It was either dusk or approaching sunrise. But it was fairly dark in the room, although not pitch black. And I was partially asleep, partially awake. And up to the right of me, just above my head, an image of a woman appeared. Just her head and her upper body. She had curly gray hair, a thin neck, a receding chin, rosebud lips. I call them rosebud lips, full but not wide. Bespectacled she was. Her glasses were the John Lennon wireframes, round. And she was peering down at me. As I looked up, I shrieked. And when I shrieked, she disappeared. Years passed. I was upstairs in the attic loft, and I had a partner at the time who was living here. And he had told me a story about his littlest brother who, when the child was around 4 or 5, had a brain tumor. and their mother had taken their brother all around the country to find in search of a cure, but he passed away. And I was upstairs on my back again, sleeping up there. And at the time, I hadn't finished the ceiling. It was still a cathedral ceiling with the joists and the studs exposed and just all dark brown. Because I remember the background of this visual was like sienna, like so almost black and white, receding browns. And the image that appeared above my head was in full color. My partner and another boy who resembled him were facing each other. They both had curly brown hair. One of them was clearly my partner, and the other one had more chestnut-colored hair. They were facing each other, and between the two of them, they were holding a receiving blanket, a baby blanket, blue. Baby blankets are maybe 3.5 feet square, and they were holding the ends of the blanket, each of them, like two people would if they were trying to lay a sheet on a bed. They were holding it between them as if they were going to lay it down together. I told him that story. And this was a man very expressive, extroverted, very emotional. And when I told him that story, he went. And I thought I saw fear in his face. I wasn't sure. The third anecdote of mine, actually it happened between the woman and the two guys. It happened in between chronologically. And this was a day when I was seated in this corner, which used to have my headache chair propped. My headache chair was one of those canvas deck chairs, cushions on a steel frame. I get migraines, and I was sitting there kind of vegging, sitting right here. All of a sudden, in the space above my head, in full color, in a frame as large as a theater movie frame, and close-up, was the image of a kid we all knew at the theater, our local Warner, who was on the stage crew. He was tall and lanky, he had chestnut brown hair combed forward, and he was the only kid on the crew. The rest were old guys, little Italian guys, only about 5'4", who would, work the riggings. But this kid was tall and lanky. I don't remember his name. We weren't friends, we weren't close, but we would always greet each other when I would go to rehearsal. Well, all of a sudden I saw his face in the forefront, in the, close-up foreground, and he was seated behind the wheel of a car. And the wheel of the car was one of those old, skinny, round, big round ones, made of plastic with the thumb depressions all around it. And he was looking directly into the camera suddenly, as if, with the hands on the wheel, looked into the camera suddenly, looked right at me. I guess I was in the passenger seat, because I could see him looking directly. And it was as if suddenly he needed to do something with a degree of urgency. And right then and there, as I was seated here in this corner, I sent up a prayer for his safety. It appeared to me that he was in sudden need of protection behind the wheel of that car. So I did. I sent up a prayer for his protection. About 2-3 days later, I had to go to rehearsal. I played in the orchestra at the time. We would always enter via the stage door, and I would we would all walk past the little office where the stage crew would hang out. And there he was, seated in the low chair with his knees up, leaning back. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, you been on the road lately?" "Yeah." "Anything happen on the road?" "Yeah." And he told me that just a couple days earlier, he had come within a couple inches of another vehicle, almost major collision, either sideswiping or plowed right into. He was about to hit this other car, and he had to swerve out of the way really fast. And I said, yeah, I saw that. I didn't tell him that I saw it in my head. I just told him I saw it. And then I proceeded into the wings to get ready to unpack for rehearsal. I think those abilities or episodes like those, if you've ever had those, any one like that, I think they're an inherited skill. I think they appear in our mind, an ability to intuit, see, hear, either something that happened in the past or something that's going to happen. I'm not sure whence they arise, but I think I inherited mine from my grandmother. Naturally, being raised by the puritanical, sectarian Christian fundamentalists, my first impulse is to run from it out of fear. And I suppose if I can be of any help to anybody else, then I'll have another one when there is someone in need of my help. I'm not sure I want to nurture the skill or train it. I'll leave this with you. You can comment if you have something similar to say. People don't usually comment on my videos, but I'd be interested. Maybe you can tell me what's going on in my mind.